everybody. Welcome to Potato Shop Podcast. I'm Brian.
I'm Dutch Murdoch.
And we are here today. We are live on YouTube, where at the same time we are recording the podcast. You can find us on Podbean. But if you're on YouTube right now, please go down that subscribe button, click it, hit the notification bell, like and share this video. And whenever we go and record a new podcast, we will always be doing it live right here. But I guess really the big news that we wanted to talk about today was we want to talk about the NWA is back.
NWA POWERRR is coming back. That's right. And it's going to be on the Fight Network, for a little bit of a subscription fee there. But what did we figure that was working out to a year?
It's about $5 a month, so it's going to be about $60 a year.
Yeah. So for about $60 a year, it's going to help support the guys there with NWA. It's a good thing. But I'm actually really excited about it because, we've talked multiple times about just what great programming and how entertaining NWA wrestling. It's different than what's out there. Not saying there's anything wrong with what AEW or any of those guys are doing, but this had a completely different feel to it. It gave that real kind of personalized wrestling. If it really truly did feel like the old days. It was very bright. It was very well put together. I liked how organic it was in the sense to where there was no scripts. When those guys come out there to cut a promo, it was just like back in the day, man. They had full reign of what they were going to come out there and say. There was a lot of really positive things that were happening. And look how many people that during the pandemic, and Thunder Rosa being one that really pops in the mind, she has not only made a name for herself and gained fans through NWA, but now she's over in AEW. She's defended the NWA women's title over there. There's a lot of eyes on NWA superstars. And unfortunately, I hate that they had the break that they had because, boy, they had such great momentum going. I hope that they're able to pick up and go again with that same enthusiasm and momentum that they had prior to the pandemic.
Right. They were on a very good track when the pandemic started. They lost, I believe, Dave Lagana and Billy Corgan said like $2 million because they were about to have Crockett Cup 2020. They were, that was going to be a massive show for them. But now the one thing that's happened is because the NWA was off for so long, they've lost a lot of their talent. So the new talent that they're going to be bringing in, let's see who they've lost. They've lost Zicky Dice.
Yes.
They've lost Ricky Starks,
right.
Eddie Kingston,
right.
James Storm,
right.
Eli Drake, and then, of course,
Josephus
passing, which to me was building up to this great moment when Aaron Stevens, you knew how it was going to play out. Aaron Stevens was going to turn on the question mark. And when the question mark turned and clocked Aaron Stevens, that place would have erupted.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the only bad thing with the death of, well, not the only bad thing, but that's one of the bad things about the character because it was building so beautifully. And they worked so well as a team with Josephus. And then even Josephus, who was a character, I think when he first came on to NWA Power, the fans didn't really rally behind him. The second time he came on there, and I think he was dressed as Santa Claus, he had a lot more. It was building.
Sure.
And that was the good thing about. But now what you're going to see probably, and what we will see is starting on March 21st, they're going to be the pay-per-view Back for the Attack, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
And it's only $19.99 again. That's a great price for it.
Absolutely.
And if you look right here, here's something interesting. it said that when Billy Corgan was talking, he said we were never in any financial peril. We were totally on a growth pattern, and the plan last year, before things kind of hit the skid, was to start pivoting. And we were in discussion with Live Nation about running live events to help bring in revenue and expand who was watching the product. That would have helped so much.
Sure.
And the way that Billy Corgan has ran this promotion, I've liked the fact that they've got a 20-year plan. Not all right, because as he said, we could go out and take 1 year, spend all of our money, and we're out of business in the following year. But he's got this plan for 20 years. At the time when he was talking at one time, he said 20-year plan, and it was playing out. And I thought that I would like, I'd be interested. With Dave Lagana, because the 10 Pound of Gold series was terrific.
Sure.
And I would like to know what's going to happen. Who's going to become their new booker? Like Jimmy Jacobs is with Impact Wrestling, and he's been helping them out. From my understanding, he's now the head booker.
Yeah.
And he's been real. And he's a really good, smart mind. I hope Billy Corgan can fill someone new who can be a visionary.
Well, Billy Corgan, to this point, from everything that he's done so far, with the exception of Carneyland, which was them wanting to try to provide new content, but I trust in the direction he's going to go. I mean, he hasn't given me a reason at this point to say, or giving me pause about it, because everything that they've done with Power and the decisions he's made have been, in my opinion, good decisions, and he's making very smart, well thought out movements. I'll tell you another thing I think that's one of their strengths is Nick Aldis. He's a long-term champion. He carries the belt, the 10 pounds of gold, old Charlotte. He carries that like the old school champions back in the day. He's very much like a Bruno Sammartino or a Ric Flair or Harley Race or, any of those guys that were long-term champions. I mean, he's defending it. He can be the baby face. He can be the heel. And you can put him in there with all different talent levels and he can go. So I also like the fact, like I said, that, since we've been watching NWA, Nick Aldis has been our champion. And I hope to see that trend continue. I really enjoy him in that spot.
Right. So I have no doubt that they're going to be fine. And but I really look forward to them coming back. I'll be also be interested in seeing if Marty Scurll comes back, because Marty has left Ring of Honor and went back to New Japan.
Okay.
I don't know if Billy Corgan I don't know if the NWA has the relationship with New Japan to allow Marty to come over.
Now, isn't New Japan working with AEW?
Yes.
So, see, I almost wonder if because obviously he's got I say he has a relationship. He may not have any kind of relationship with them. I mean, just because some of his wrestlers are showing up. But the fact that AEW allowed NWA's women world title to be defended on their television tends to lead me to believe that there's some type of working relationship there between AEW and NWA. And so I know that with New Japan, they have a working relationship with AEW. I guess where I'm going with this is, what we're seeing now is we're seeing these companies like New Japan and AEW and Impact Wrestling too. Impact Wrestling's in on this. They're working together now, and they're doing the talent shares, and they're helping each other out, and in turn, we as fans are the ones that are reaping the benefits from it, because you're seeing storylines play out. You're seeing talent move around and stay fresh. And it's good. It's real good.
Right.
So I think there might be a chance, but then again, that storyline that they had started to work out with, the rematch between Marty Scurll and Nick Aldis, we're talking, gosh, that's now a year old. That, and granted, I mean, they can go back there and do the whole highlight thing of it, but
It's out.
It's done for now. It's done. They're going to have to reintroduce it and make you remember why you want to see that match, because that was a phenomenal match at Crockett Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And I was excited to see the sequel to that. So,
right.
But anyway,
yeah. But yeah, that's, and all of this is going to take place on Fight TV. People got worried when NWA took down all their content off the YouTube page, but what they said, since they signed the exclusive deal with Fight TV, they've put all their YouTube NWA Power on there to watch for free.
Sure,
they're going to have, that's where their pay-per-views will be, and then also that will be their the new powers for $5. And I don't know if they'll transfer them over to free as the time after so many weeks or whatever the case might be, but you can watch the new ones for $5 a month. And I think honestly that's not a bad deal. If you're going to support, you got to support the product. Otherwise,
that's right.
I mean, you got to look at the NWA. They're not like they used to be.
Right.
And they're not signing billion-dollar deals, $5 billion deals like the WWE did with Peacock and Fox and all that good stuff.
Sure.
So,
well, speaking of NWA, there was a loss to one of the pioneers of the NWA back in the day, the Crockett Promotions. Jimmy Crockett Jr. Has passed away at the age of 76. Of course, he was a staple for us growing up because we were in the Crockett Promotion territory. So he's a very familiar face to us. The Crockett name is here to us is just like McMahon name was up north, or the Von Erich name was out in Texas, and or Gagne up in Minnesota and whatnot. But we were Crockett guys, and so it's very sad to see that he's passed. So
yeah, the thing is, Jim Crockett Jr. really did a lot for the business. He did a lot for NWA. He brought the NWA Mid-Atlantic, was what brought the big wrestling events with Starrcade in 1983.
Correct.
And then WWE came along and did WrestleMania.
Right.
So he had a lot of stuff in his head too, because even at the end where he made a mistake, he wanted to move the promotion to Dallas.
Yeah. And
if you remember, and one of the things he wanted to do was to turn to movies and TV. And that's exactly what WWE is doing now. So in the end, Jimmy Crockett Jr. was looking at the business possibly very similar to the way Vince McMahon was looking at it. The problem, though, was he had, as they said, the accountant that he had from years ago running the books. And had he got a proper accountant in there, I think it would have maybe been different.
Oh, I agree. It's
because they wouldn't have allowed Dusty Rhodes to get a jetliner.
Right. It's always fun to look back on the old school promotions because, you can make the argument when you sit down and look at each of the promotions, whether it be AWA, World Class, Crockett Promotions, hell, even go down into Florida, to where Mike Graham and his dad them were, because those guys got, they had a lot of talent too that, of course, got ripped off and came a little north for Crockett's. But being here nor there, though, it's always fun to look and see where some of these guys had gotten themselves, because it was, like, for example, Vern Gagne and his group, man, did very good with merchandising. They were selling wrestler T-shirts. They were in front of that. And then we talked about they had the best wrestling toys that were out. They actually had posable wrestling action figures that weren't like the WWE figures where they were just basically statues. These were actually figures you could play with.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course over on the World Class side, you look at them and had Fritz pulled the trigger on the TV deal, you know, who knows? There might be two of them that would have remained in place because, you know, how much talent came from those areas. I mean, we know obviously it's very well documented that Vince McMahon strip mined AWA of a lot of talent. But you know, World Class was in part of that group with NWA, so they worked very closely with Crockett Promotions. So how many guys came from the World Class Championship Wrestling area and came out this way and wrestled for a little bit, and vice versa? I mean, you know, Ric Flair had some, you know, very well noted stories about or matches out there in World Class with Kerry Von Erich.
Right.
You know, so.
You know, I was thinking about the NWA last night because I was listening to Jim Cornette talk about how the Von Erichs David Von Erich was set to win the NWA championship. They said he was the guy who could be a bad guy because he was going to St. Louis. He went to Florida. He went to Atlanta, and he played the bad guy. And because they wanted him to know how to play both sides. And it was and they said when he was in Atlanta, the Von Erich brothers, who were always the good guys, sent a video saying how they supported David and they played, and it was all as bad guys.
Yeah.
And but it makes me wonder. Ric Flair there was a time where Ric Flair might have lost the belt.
Sure.
Well, he would have had to have lost the belt. I wonder how that would have affected his career. Because then, you know, as you move forward, all right, well, David dies. He had an overdose. So
right.
They kept the belt on Flair.
Yeah.
Then they moved forward a little bit, and they had Magnum TA. He was going to be the next big thing. And he had the automobile accident, and he lost the belt. Or he never even got a chance to win the belt like David. So Flair kept the belt. You know, so it makes me wonder, like, how Flair's career has had stuff, and I wonder if it would have been derailed.
Well, all right. So let me just personal opinion here. Both those guys were good, and obviously had the fans, but they didn't have what Ric Flair had. And yes, Ric Flair may have dropped the belt to him, and they may have done a stint as champion, but I don't think those guys would have had the career, because let's be honest here, you don't hear anybody that's not a diehard wrestling fan ever mention Magnum TA. Okay, you just don't. But Ric Flair's part of pop culture, just like Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like he may have dropped the title, but I think the reason that Flair carried the title, because you think about the little bit of runs he had even back in NWA. You know, there was a certain Flair brought credibility to the titles. Flair was like The Rock back in the day with the mic. You know what I'm saying? You put the mic in front of Ric Flair, he could cut a promo that would just leave people talking, whether they wanted to beat him up or they wanted to emulate him or whatever it was they wanted to do. You know, Ric Flair was second to none on that mic back in the day. And he had charisma that even Magnum TA did. I don't think Magnum TA had the charisma Ric Flair had. And I don't know that David Von Erich had the charisma that Ric Flair had. Yeah, they were over, but I don't know that they would have been long-term champions that would have derailed Flair from what he was. Because look, Ric Flair wrestled the best of the best. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
He wrestled the Dusty Rhodes. And, you know, Dusty Rhodes oozed charisma.
Right.
But at the end of the day, Dusty Rhodes was a baby face. And Dusty Rhodes was a lot like Ricky Steamboat. He was great for the chase, but once he got the title, it was kind of like, all right, well, now what are you going to do with him? You know what I mean? So,
yeah. But it was just something that I thought about.
But again, now, in fairness, David Von Erich, we didn't really have a lot of exposure to him, so there's no frame of reference here to say, well, this is how he was as a baby face, this is how he was as a heel. He might have been Dynamite.
Right.
It very well could have been, okay? I don't know. But I do know we lived through the Magnum TA era. And I loved Magnum TA, okay? But Magnum TA did not have the it factor that Ric Flair did. He would have won the title.
He would have been successful.
But Flair would have got it back.
He would have had to turn bad. Because a lot of them NWA was the bad guys had the belt. The good guys were chasing it. And no matter which good guy won the belt, look at Sting. Look at Dusty Rhodes.
Right.
It was like people.
Look at Tommy Rich.
Tommy Rich was just like a favor from my understanding.
Well, it may have been, but his entire career there was babyface.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's funner to, they want to watch the babyface beat up the heel.
Right.
They don't want to see the babyface Sting or whoever it might be, Ricky Steamboat. And these are all really good wrestlers, but as soon as they win the belt, fans quit.
But that was always the case. NWA or WCW, those guys, they always, like you said, they built their champions as heels.
Right.
And it was the good guys fighting the heel. Whereas WWE was very much, especially with Hogan, and that's more of what I was going to reference is Hogan was the perpetual baby face.
Right.
And so they would bring heels in specifically to feud with him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so it was, but I always enjoyed, I will say this, I always enjoyed WWE's mentality with WrestleMania. And maybe it got them a little too predictable there for a while, but I always liked the idea of that when they got to WrestleMania, yes, that was the big payday, but they were going to send the fans home happy. In other words, the babyface was going to triumphantly win in the main event. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I like that because there's, that was kind of a good. I always referenced it. It was like Disney. You know what I'm saying? They always wanted to send people home happy with that. So, and obviously it was very successful because, I mean, look where they're at now. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
absolutely.
So it served them well. So,
right. For WCW, NWA had the ability to send, because, I mean, Flair won. He was the good guy in 83. Then he was the bad guy and he won. And then Dusty Rhodes won, but he really didn't win, which that one was probably one of the worst. That was the first Dusty finish that I can honestly remember.
Right.
And that's the time you don't play the Dusty card, the Dusty finish card. You should do that for house shows. Not that I'm really crazy about it, but at least at the house show, it's not like that's the big blow off. This was Dusty getting revenge for having his leg broken.
I think that you and I have talked about this before, but I mean, I would not say that there's never a time to use the Dusty finish, because obviously if the story, if you've got a direction you're going with the story that this is going to play out, but in order to get to the end or get to where the payday is, you got to have this. That's fine, but it should be used very sparingly, because they got to where they went to the well on that one so many times that it was like when they would pull that ending, man, that wasn't getting like heat, like that was getting like legitimate, like fuck this thing kind of heat. You know what I'm saying? Like it was getting like real heat, like X-Pac heat. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
X-Pac wasn't getting booed because people were booing his character. People were booing him because they just genuinely didn't like him.
Right. And that's a card they have to play. I mean, or that's something they have to watch.
Right.
Whenever they do it. But I'm so happy to see that the NWA and the NWA Power show is coming back. I would love to. Obviously, you want to see them on you. Now, let's just say this. Now, real quick. Tonight, the NWA put out, we're going to have a special preview on YouTube. And it was a 1-minute ad. And just to show you within 4 minutes, well over 1,000 people had watched it, or 3 minutes, whatever it was.
Right.
So there was a lot of interest in it for a minute ad.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of cheap, and I thought that was real cheesy. They should have gave you a little bit more substance than what they gave you. You know what you do? You don't broadcast it. You just put it up on YouTube. You don't have to send telling me you got a new commercial out. You know, come on. That's the only thing that I will say that I haven't really cared too much for.
Yeah.
I think you're going to hit on all cylinders. Nothing would give me greater pleasure. I'm glad to see that we're talking about doing the live events because we went to Concord, North Carolina, watched Ring of Honor, who was CMLL, NWA do the Crockett Cup 2019.
Yep.
And it was very good.
Phenomenal.
It pulled me back in, even with,
it left me wanting more.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And then even the championship, and like when Nick Aldis took on, that's where Marty Scurll and Nick Aldis had their first fight and wrestling match. And like when they brought Tommy Young in there and he did the whole testing the ropes, it made it seem like a legit contest because he was making sure the ring ropes were tight enough. He was bouncing on the spring. He was doing stuff. And I thought just the little stuff makes it something. And that's what NWA can bring back,
Agreed.
And I do foresee them doing that. The one thing, so yeah, I just hope that they don't. The one thing I would love to see them do though, and this is all wrestling promotions, honestly, is take the wrestlers and try to use figure out a way to use the social media where it's not exposing the business. I get it. It's their friends in the back. But I would still, and I don't even know if they can do it now. Maybe it's just too late. But I still would like, just make me believe. Don't show me you hugging. You're the enemy. You were just wrestling, or you over there in some foreign land taking a picture together.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I would really like to see return from pro wrestling. Is I like just make me believe for a minute. But.
Well,
there's nothing. I don't know if you can get that toothpaste back into the tube.
I doubt you can.
So, let's see. Is there anything else to talk about when it comes to the NWA? It's back. It's going to be March. Let's go back here real quick. March 21st on Fight TV, and after that, NWA Power starts coming back on to Fight TV, and I think that's about it for the NWA.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it.
Good news.
So, all right. I think we'll call it a show for now.
Sounds good.
So, once again, if you've made it to this far in the show, please click the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, like and share this video. And, we'll be back at some point to do a documentary review. We're going to have some more updates here on the YouTube channel. And until next time, I'm Brian.
And I'm Iron Dutch Murdoch.
We'll see you later.